It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is David Harrison of the Locked On Commanders podcast, here to tell you that U.S. Cellular knows how important your kids' relationship with technology is, and they've made it their mission to help them establish good digital habits early on. That's why they've partnered with Screen Sanity, a nonprofit dedicated to helping kids navigate the digital landscape. And for a smarter start to the school year, U.S. Cellular is also offering a free basic phone on new eligible lines, providing an alternative to a smartphone for children. Start smarter with U.S. Cellular. Visit uscellular.com/built for us to find out more. Terms apply.
Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome back inside the lab. That is the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, and the offseason coverage continues. Troy Terry getting the bag with the Anaheim Ducks, but what does it mean for his fantasy value and the rest of the Anaheim success? And the crystal ball is out, everybody. We're having a look at this Calder Trophy race that's going to be extra spicy this year. Thank you for joining us. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everybody? And thank you so much for joining us once again for the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, Big Time Friday edition. I am joined, as always, by my esteemed co-host, Mr. Steele Roden. Please check out his work all across YouTube under NHL Quick Hits and all over the Locked On Network. On this side of the microphone, it's your boy, Big Flip Livingstone. You can check me out, Dauber Hockey, Sportsnet, and wherever you need your betting and fantasy takes. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day, even throughout these dog days of the offseason, Steele. There's still some news trickling out. That's why we're going to get to this Troy Terry situation. 7-year contract, the 25-year-old securing the bag here a little bit. But I think the Anaheim Ducks doing the right thing and avoiding arbitration with a guy who I think, Steele, has been nothing but a stud over the last couple of years offensively. I'll get Steele's take on that. And this Calder Trophy race this season, Steele, has so many intriguing names, fantasy or otherwise. You know, I got to be sprinkling a few bets here. Luke Hughes, Connor Bedard, Shane Wright, Logan Cooley, Matty Nyes, Devon Levi. We're going to break it all down on a very short Friday episode. Let you get up to the cottage early this weekend, everybody. Steele, right over to you, my friend. Troy Terry has been beasting the last couple of years offensively. What's your take on this 7-year, $49 million deal?
Yeah, it's an absolute, and it's absolute. He secures the bag immediately after the arbitration. I think, you know, the Anaheim Ducks coming in at 4.5 and then him coming in at 8 and then landing at 7 was a little surprising to me. You know, we talked about this with Michael Amato just the other day. Like, we all thought that he was going to land somewhere between 6.2 to 6.4 most likely, and he gets a little bit more than a lot of us were expecting. I think, you know, obviously they avoid arbitration and they get the long-term deal done. I think it's a little much though. You know, he's only gotten, he's had 2 back-to-back seasons with 60 plus points, hasn't played a full season in the NHL yet. He is an offensive juggernaut. He is one of the best players for the Anaheim Ducks right there with Trevor Zegras. But fantasy value-wise, you know, the peripheral stats bring his fantasy value down a lot. And you can see that on where he was ranked and where he finished at the end of the season. He finished 150th in fantasy points in Yahoo this past year. You know, he gets no blocks, he gets no hits, no penalty minutes, not enough power play points as well. Only had 5 power play goals and 7 assists. So he does get a lot of points. He had 61 points in 70 games, but a lot of that is 5-on-5. So if the Anaheim Ducks can get better on the power play, move the puck around a little bit, they've got the talent there. They bring in Alex Killorn. Maybe that can generate some sort of offensive, you know, net front presence on the power play for them. But again, as much as he is an offensively skilled player, fantasy value-wise, it brings him down because of those peripheral stats just not jumping off the page.
Most definitely. I think the book is out on him fantasy-wise. We know this about Troy Terry now. And you mentioned one of the caveats that kind of pops off right off the top of the list is he has not played a full season just yet. And yeah, I know he's 25. You know me with the ages here, Steele. 25 years old, Steele.
He's 25.
25. Thank you. He's going to be 26 by the time the season rolls around. But maybe we also haven't seen, good or bad, what Troy Terry fully is. And could he get better? For sure. But maybe he regresses as well. And I'm actually okay with the deal because I think he really is important to the Ducks' overall success. Yeah. It is a bit of a reach given all the caveats you just mentioned. I think at the end of it all, for the fantasy side of things, I think the Ducks are going to take a decent step this year. The goaltending is a big question. They have some decent young pieces as well. Olin Zellweger, talking about Calder, way down that list. There's some very intriguing young names on this team that when I look at the lineup, you know, Radko Gudas comes in to add that veteran presence. Alex Killorn comes in to add that veteran presence. Mason McTavish is still on the come up, and Trevor Zegras might be right on the cusp of being one of the superstars in this league. So I think I really am not ready to fully predict just yet what I think is going to happen for Troy Terry, because I think it's going to be connected so closely to the overall success of this Anaheim Ducks team. But I'll leave it at this deal and throw it back to you to wrap this bad boy up. He has scored 60 goals over the last 2 seasons. So that is something that can't be ignored. But I would say this also. He is the kind of guy that I'm leaving to the back end of the draft, and I'm going to use him as maybe my first bench spot or maybe like my last offensive piece. But I got to be taking guys that fill out that peripheral categories first, because he's not bringing that at all, and that's just not his game.
Yeah, and the same kind of goes for Trevor Zegras. Like the last 2 years, he also has 60-plus points. Yes, he played 81 games, pretty much a full season last year, had 65 points. Could be a banger league beauty as well, had 88 penalty minutes on last season, 184 shots. He does get a little chippy. He gets a little nasty out there with his stick. He takes a lot of high sticking and tripping penalties.
Yep.
He's mouthy too. He is mouthy. That is a part of his game. So now that, I understand the 7 year, $7 million, I do think it's a little much, but I understand it because this is we believe in you in, maybe in the next 2 years, you could be getting 80, 85 points. And if he does that, the deal is great. Now I'm wondering, what's Trevor Zegras going to get? Is he going to get $7 million? He's going to get 7.5, maybe 8, because he's probably the better player over Troy Terry right now, even at 23 years old. Yeah. So, or 22 years old. But yeah, so I'm really excited to see what Trevor Zegras is going to get. But
me too.
This is going to be a better Anaheim Ducks team. Like you said, Jamie Drysdale, you spoke very highly of him the other day when Michael Amato was on the podcast.
Yep.
Zellweger, like you said, they bring in Radko Gudas to be that enforcer on the blue line, protect their young guys, as well as Alex Killorn. So they're going to get better, but as it sits right now, when you look at what happened last year, the power play wasn't great. The peripheral stats were just not great for either of these players, really. So that drops them down just a tad in the fantasy draft. But I am very excited to see what both those young players are able to do this upcoming year.
Me too. And I think the overall bump in the quality of the team is going to give them a little bit of a bump. Am I saying reach on either of those players? No, but I think their value goes up when actually they're going to be able to be their young selves. Radko Gudas is going to free up some space. Alex Killorn has won cups, is going to bring in a steadying veteran presence to allow some of these players to really do their thing. So that's what I think we really need to watch develop. And lastly, you mentioned the categories for this Ducks team. They were at the bottom or near the bottom or at the very bottom of every offensive and defensive category that counts. They can't be that bad again. Lucas Dostal in the cage is one of those guys that, I've brought up at length as someone who, he's going to get filled in this year, but he's going to get a good look alongside John Gibson to split that net. I really do think so. We'll keep an eye on that. We're going to keep an eye on all of the Calder race players in the mix, including Connor Bedard, Devon Levi, Luke Hughes, and others. We're also keeping our eye over at FanDuel Sportsbook, because today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. Take your first swing on betting on the MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right, just $20 down and you'll land $200 back in bonus bets. Win or lose, I don't know what else you need to hear, people. That's $200 you can be splashing on everything from the money line to the over-under to who you think hits that first home run, all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid out instantly, baby. There's no better place to bet on the MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Sign up today. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get $200 back in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball.
There's no off-season for the true NHL fan, and there are no off days for Locked On NHL. This off-season, Locked On NHL has you taken care of. In just 30 minutes every day, Locked On NHL will give you the latest on all the fireworks of the NHL offseason. Locked On NHL, free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your favorite team from all four major sports leagues, including the NCAA, your team every single day. And thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. We appreciate all that love and support. Make sure you're continuing to leave comments on the YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe, hit the follow button, share this with all your friends and family out there. We appreciate all the support our listeners show us, again, every single day, Monday through Friday. And again, once September comes around, we will be ramping the episodes, the content back up, because the season will be near, and we can't be more excited for hockey in the NHL. So very hyped. Excited about, hyped about the next this upcoming season, especially because of the Calder Trophy. Calder Trophy with these young players this next year. Obviously, Connor Bedard leading the way at minus 140 right now. There's no surprise for that with Connor Bedard, but there are a few other options out there below Bedard who could potentially win this. And I'll throw it over to you, Flip, because I want to hear your first guy. Who are you looking at right off the bat who you believe could give Bedard a run for his money?
When we're talking about betting odds, Steele, when the season is coming down the line, there are a lot of opportunities to, of course, make money, but there are some spots where you just want to be very careful of throwing more than maybe $5 or $10 at these. Because let's be honest here, I'm not going to try and, reinvent the wheel. Connor Bedard is, and now Steele, actually, the number has actually gone down a little bit. I'm seeing minus 115 here with our friends at FanDuel. So there is a little bit of, people starting to sprinkle money on other players. And my first name, I look at where do these players have the best chance to succeed. Connor Bedard's going to a team that, they're going to score some goals. They're going to get pumped on night, Steele. That's going to be hard sometimes on a guy who's so young. Looking at Luke Hughes at plus 600, gets to slot into a really good team, playing with his brother, a team that just went on a very impressive run last year. So if we're talking about value and we're talking about guys who might be right there knocking on the door, Luke Hughes is, so you look at the other names around him. Logan Cooley, Arizona Coyotes. Shane Wright might be battling to play in the Seattle mix. Matt Nyes at plus 2,000. Are you really going to risk a guy who's got, he's going to be battling for minutes in that Toronto top 9? When I look at the opportunities at plus 600 and just the setting for winning, Luke Hughes is the name that jumps off the page for me, number one, Steele. And I'll throw it back over to you because there's another player at plus 2,000 a little down this list that we'll get to in a second. But I think my main takeaway here is, and when I look at the last couple of trophy winners for the Calder, Moritz Seider was a D-man who won it. How about when you look back a bit, Aaron Ekblad, Tyler Myers? There have been blue liners who get this Calder Trophy. So it's not out of the question that you're looking at Hughes as an option here.
I do agree with you on that, but, Hughes is going into a very good situation, obviously playing with his brother on the blue line. They've got some great talent there. So at plus 600, there is some money to be made with Luke Hughes. But the first guy I'm looking at, or first player, I'm actually looking at Devon Levi of the Buffalo Sabres.
That was my next one.
What's your what are the odds right now?
Plus 2,000 at FanDuel.
Plus 2,000 for Devon Levi right now on FanDuel. That is some great odds right there. He will be hopefully the number one goalie. If he has a hot start for Buffalo, they've got Devon Levi, that Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen as well. They could share it a little bit, but I think Devon Levi will get majority of the starts. And at plus 2,000. I think he could be the turning point for the Buffalo Sabres. We've been talking about how they need a true number one starting goaltender, and this kid is that guy. Just looking at his stats, at Northeastern University, even the 7 games in the NHL he played last year, it's unbelievable what he's capable of doing. Even what I've seen in the off-season work, all over social media, the practice, the work he puts in. It's unbelievable, the determination and skill level of this goaltender. So Devon Levi can be that goaltender and true number one, and be that changing of the guard for the Buffalo Sabres. So I really like Devon Levi at plus 2,000.
Thank you.
You did mention Matthew Nyes. I do like him a little bit, but you do make a great point of him battling for minutes. If he can somehow jump up into the top 6, because I really liked him playing with John Tavares and William Nylander last year, especially in the playoffs.
Me too.
If he can somehow get into there, and if Max Domi slides down to the third line with David Camp, I think that creates more opportunity for Matthew Nye. So I really like him at plus 2,000 as well. And yeah, those are my top 2 guys right now, but I do have one more player I want to talk about.
I appreciate that, Steele. And honestly, Devon Levi was the guy I wanted to talk about as well. So I'll keep my take on this very short. Adam Fantilli is here. I'm sure you might talk about a couple of these other guys down the list. There's also Simon Nemec on the New Jersey Devils, who really didn't get any looks last year in the NHL. They have a lot of really intriguing pieces, these New Jersey Devils. I'll leave that at that. But Devon Levi, you mentioned his ability to perform at every platform that he seemingly played on. How about at the World Juniors a couple of years ago, Steele? 7 games played, 6-1 with a .964 save percentage and 3 shutouts. This guy is a gamer. I don't think the stage is going to rattle him. My concern here with his value and at this trophy race is when I dig into the numbers on the Buffalo Sabres, because we know this team defensively. Owen Power is there. Rasmus Dahlin is there, but they're going to need to get a lot better defensively. Case in point, they allowed the 6th most shots on net last year at almost 34 shots against per game. That's too many for a rookie goalie. I don't care how good he is. So they're going to need to tighten up defensively before I really sink any more money into Levi. But I think he is going to be a really, really good option as maybe your 3rd goalie, or in deeper leagues, if you have to, he's your secondary goalie. I think he's going to be very valuable this year fantasy-wise.
I think so as well. I really do think he's going to take over that starting job for the Buffalo Sabres.
The 65-35 in terms of the split, by the way. That was my last point.
You think he plays 65 games?
No, 65%. Like I'm saying 65% of
I was
going to
say 65 games might be a little
No. I mean like 65-35 in terms of, I think he gets, a third of the starts here.
Yeah, I could see that.
Two-thirds.
I could see him getting, 50, 52, 50, something around there. And 50, if he's playing well enough, which I think he's capable of doing so. And so I really do like Devon Levi. My last player.
Who else you got?
My last player that I want to talk about is actually Adam Fantilli. I think he's going into a very, very good situation right now. I think there is a question mark about Mike Babcock behind the bench. Is his coaching style going to change? Has it changed?
Interesting.
I hope it has for Adam Fantilli's sake. But with just talking about overall player wise and who he's playing with, obviously if he jumps onto that first line, he's playing with Johnny Gaudreau and Patrick Laine, and that's just insane as it is right there. That'd be a great opportunity for Gaudreau or for Adam Fantilli. I would really prefer Boone Jenner to drop down to the second line center as well. But even if Fantilli stays as second line center, we talked about him a little bit last year. Kent Johnson, another young player who could bring up some talent as well. And Kirill Marchenko, who was scoring goals at will for the Columbus Blue Jackets. So that second line could be very sneaky dangerous. So for me, Adam Fantilli is another player. I want to get the odds from you. What are the odds right now for Adam Fantilli?
Fantilli is also at plus 2,000. So literally you have Bedard at minus 115, Hughes at plus 600, Cooley at plus 1,500 Steele, and then Wright, Nyes, Levi, Fantilli, Brandt Clark, all at plus 2,000.
Yeah, so again, those 3 players for me, Matthew Nyes, Adam Fantilli, and Devon Levi, all at plus 2,000 right now. I'll even throw Shane Wright in there. Again, you mentioned it. Will he get enough playing time? How many minutes will he get? Can he even get top 6 playing time? But we know Shane Wright is capable of doing great things. Maybe a little bit of an attitude problem. We haven't seen him too much over the last year. So I would like to see him in a Seattle Kraken jersey. But those top 3 players that I just mentioned, especially Devon Levi is my number 1 guy. That's who I'm riding with for the Calder, besides Connor Bedard.
Yeah, goalie winning the only, was it Steve Mason? It was one of the last ones I remember. But anyway, Devon Levi is going into, I think it just ties to what we think will happen with the Buffalo Sabres Steele. There is just so much good talent. We mentioned Dahlin and Owen Power. Both of those guys haven't even played their best hockey yet. Dahlin's like 22. Power's maybe 19, 20. Again, with the ages. But what matters here is there's a lot of value to be had if we're talking about the betting side of things. And the fantasy side of things, I just want to bring it back to the Columbus Blue Jackets before I wrap this up. Yeah, they're going to be in real tough in that Metro division. I'm not trying to come on here and make bold predictions, especially when I think their biggest issue, clear and away, is what's going on in the cage. But up front, Kent Johnson, Kirill Marchenko finished 10th in Calder voting last year, Steele.
Yep.
And I watched, one of those games that's on like Saturday afternoon when you're just jonesing for the whole lineup to start.
Yeah.
Looking to sprinkle a bit of a degenerate parlay. And I think it was honestly Blue Jackets and Stars or something. And this kid just dangled Ottinger out of his jockstrap or whoever it was in a shootout. And I had to write his name down. Kent Johnson, Adam Fantilli, Kirill Marchenko. Keep your eye on them because I think what you and I have said at length, Steele, at the end of your draft, instead of wasting your bench spots or last draft or two on a guy whose name is bigger than his actual value, have a look at some of these really young players because I think the main thing that you can really take away from today's episode is there's going to be a lot of opportunities this year to snag one of these good young players when another GM might be sleeping or slipping. And that's why you're tapped in Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to this show.
Yes, sir. That's why you're tapping into the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast. And you said it right there. Kirill Marchenko, 21 goals in 59 games last year, only had 4 assists. So Adam Fantilli, we know he likes to pass the puck. He likes setting up his teammates. Had 37 goals, 37 assists last year, 74 points total in 54 games. So he'll be setting up Marchenko. He'll be setting up Johnson. And maybe if he plays with Gaudreau can set up Adam Fantilli. But he's going to bring a lot to the table. That's one of those guys that I would like to maybe draft late in the later stages of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey League draft, as well as just fantasy leagues in general. So I'll be looking out for him as well. But
I like it.
Columbus could be a sneaky team as well. Their defensive group, again, they were very plagued with injuries last season, especially getting back Zach Werenski is going to be huge for them. I do agree with you, though. The goaltending situation, can Elvis Merzlikins be the number one guy? I know they got Tarasov backing him up now, but it's a big question mark. So
huge.
I'm with you. I'm with you there with the Columbus Blue Jackets, but couldn't be more excited about everything we just talked about Calder Trophy wise. This trophy race could be the most epic Calder Trophy race that we've seen in a long, long time. So make sure you're getting the best odds right now on FanDuel. Yes. And thank you guys so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast your first listen every single day. Make sure you're tuning in Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Only 3 episodes every week in the month of August. And again, thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Have a great long weekend as well. Good luck with all your summer bets out there. And we shall see you back here again on Monday.
Peace.
Hey, Prime members, you can listen to this Locked On podcast ad-free on Amazon Music. Download the Amazon Music app today.